Hey you guys, today I'm going to be changing out a dimmer switch. We're going to change out this old roller dimmer. This is original to the house and I haven't liked it for a long time, but I just haven't really done anything about it. We're going to install a Decora dimmer switch. It's going to match the rest of the house. I'll show you exactly how to do it. You have to make sure when you're picking out a dimmer switch that it will operate your light bulbs. You have to make sure the fixture and the bulbs are dimmable. You have to make sure that if it's LED bulbs that you have an LED dimmer. Nowadays technology is moving along, so you have these LED plus dimmers, so LED and halogen and incandescent. So make sure that whenever you're buying a dimmer, you get the correct one for your light bulbs. And if you don't know, ask a pro. You can always call the hotline and I can help you walk you through it. So let's get started. Okay, first thing you want to do, find your breaker panel. You're going to want to make sure that you turn power off to whatever switch you're working on before you ever even pull it out of the wall. And if you don't know exactly where it's at, because mine is labeled here, luckily I had a good electrician that wired my house and they labeled it properly. I got general lights right here. If you don't know and your panel is not labeled, I will show you how to safely check and see if you have power. Okay, but for now, I'm gonna go ahead and cut this breaker and we'll get started. All right, you guys, before we get started, real quick, I wanna show you the tools that I'm gonna use for this. We have our ratcheting 11-in-1. Which is an amazing tool. We have our non-contact voltage tester, or tick tester, like I call it, with my bougie flashlight. We have my strippers. These needle nose strippers are one of the best tools I've ever purchased. They are amazing. These are my Lyman's pliers. We call them Kleins in the field, just because they're made by Klein. Klein's really big in the electrical industry. They make a lot of tools. So this is also Klein. This is a meter, an electrical meter. And then I have my impact driver here. All the tools you see here, and then everything I use and have used in the field and that I trust, we recommend on our website, homeownerpal.com. If you scroll down to the bottom of the page, it's in the recommended tools section. It's not marked up or anything. It just goes to an Amazon. Like if you click a link, it goes to your Amazon. If you buy it off of there, we get a percentage. It doesn't cost you anything extra. It's just a deal we worked out with Amazon. A lot of people do it apparently. It was the first I had heard of it. Anyways, we only recommend tools that we've used in the field and that we trust. All right, here we go. All right, first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna pop this plate off. For that, we're gonna use the trim screwdriver setting on this 11-in-1. With 11-in-1s, you have multiple different options to choose from. We're using the trim screwdriver. I could use this bigger flathead, but I don't wanna use that because it'll peel the paint inside the screw here, and we want it to look fancy. So we are going to unscrew the screws, and this plate was most likely put on whenever this home was originally painted. So what we'll do is we'll go over the edges. Well, the bottom will come off, but I don't want to peel the paint, so I'm going to go over the edges with a knife, or you could use a razor blade. I like knives. And these rollers, that little guy comes off. Pop your plate off. And it's not even screwed in. So, excellent work to whomever did that. All right, so we got our box open, and this is the first thing we see. Right now we have these two black wires coming out here with another black wire that goes to our dimmer. That lets me know that this is power. This would be considered what's called a pigtail. This is power, and I know that because I have two wires right here, and typically how a house is wired is you'll come from your panel, your breaker box, and then a wire will come to this box down the wall here, boop, into this box, then it'll jump to another box, then to another box, then to another box, right? It's called daisy chaining. So this is our switch leg right here. This is our power. The switch leg, again, we covered in our last video, goes up, and it's gonna go directly to our fixture, okay? So that's our switch leg. These white wires are our neutrals. I'm not gonna go into specifics because there's really no point. I'm not trying to train electricians here. Just know that a light won't function without this guy. So we need the neutrals, but you do not have to use a neutral on a switch unless it's a fancy switch, which we're not doing. So we've got our power, we've got our switch leg, we have our ground, okay? So we're gonna take these apart. I just got sheetrock all over the place. Take out these wire nuts. I'm gonna put better wire nuts on. I do not like these little wire nuts. All right, every dimmer that I've ever worked with comes with a diagram in the box. So it'll tell you how to wire it up. I already know how to wire it up, so I don't really need to worry about it. But this one is for a 3-way switch, which I'm not using, so I'm just gonna cap this off with a wire nut. And then we have our red and our black. It doesn't really matter how I wire these. I can put the hot on the red or the black. Some dimmers do matter, so make sure you're paying attention. But this one, it doesn't matter. So I'm just gonna wire it how I want to, really. And we'll go through that right now. Okay, so I have my hot wires, my power wires, I have my switch leg, and I have my ground. When it comes to wiring up what's called a joint, this would be a joint whenever I joint these wires together. You have to be very careful and make sure that you're making it tight. You're gonna use a wire nut and you're gonna make it very tight. I'm gonna show you exactly how to do it. Because if it's loose, a loose wire is one of the biggest problems that we see. Loose wires, what they do is it'll sit in here, and if it's not making full contact with that wire, it'll arc inside the wire nut, and it'll eventually melt the wire nut. It's just arcing thousands of times a day, and then it'll melt the wire nut. You'll start smelling a plasticky smell, like a chemical smell, and it's like mixed between chemical and burning. I've heard it described as like pool chemicals. And then, you know, it'll melt and hopefully trip your breaker, which is what it's supposed to do. But you know, worse is it'll start a fire. So you want to make sure everything's super tight. I'll show you exactly how to do that. All right, so I've got my tannin red wire nuts. We call them tannin reds. You can pick them up pretty much anywhere. You can pick up all kinds of different wire nuts. I prefer these because they are the best. I will throw them on the website. So you always want to do your ground first. You don't want to do this. A lot of people will just put the wires together and then screw on the wire nut and make the solid joint. You don't want to do that. You're going to want to twist your wire together and make sure that this wire that you're adding to it, because it's a little flimsier and it's aluminum, you want to make sure it comes up to the top of this wire. Sometimes it's okay to stick it up a little bit further than the top, but this should be okay right here. And then you're going to put on your wire nut and you're going to screw it nice and tight. Keep screwing it, keep screwing it. You don't want to screw it so far that the wire sticks out of this end. It will happen sometimes, but you don't want to do that. So if you do that, you need to replace the wire nut. But then you give it a firm tug, both wires separately. You give them a firm tug, make sure nothing pops out. That means that it's a good connection. I'm gonna make, for the purposes of this video, I'm gonna make the black my power wire, my hot wire. So again, you're gonna wanna wrap it around the wires. And so see how I have it sticking up a little bit there? I don't know if you can tell on the video, but it's sticking up a little bit off the top there. So then I'm gonna place my wire nut on. I'm gonna loosely start screwing it on so it'll catch this aluminum wire here that's coming off this dimmer. And then I'll make sure it's nice and tight, and I'll tug on it, and then I'll tug on these. It's nice and tight. I know that's tight. I'm not worried about that at all. So this is our 3-way, so we're not using that. We'll put that aside for now. And we have our switch leg that goes up to our light fixture. And again, we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna wrap it around our wire, sticking right off the top right there. And then we're gonna screw it on there nice and tight. That's the reason why I love these wire nuts. Okay, well, spoke too soon. Okay, screw it on nice and tight. And then we're gonna put a wire nut on this. We'll use one of these yellow ones because they're smaller. Sometimes if it doesn't grip, you can fold the wire over. Just make sure it's not sticking out the other end of your wire nut, but this one's good, okay? So next we're gonna cut our breaker on and I'm gonna test it. So this is all safe now. It's inside the wire nut. There's no exposed copper here. You want to make sure when you put your wire nuts on that you do not have exposed copper sticking out here. That's a no-no. Obviously, your ground is always going to be exposed. It is not a problem. Do not worry about that. But you don't want your ground touching anything live, any hot wires. So that's why we make sure that these aren't touching. So we tuck all of our wires back in our box, nice and safe and snug. All right, this is what the box should look like when you're done. You shove everything in the back there and make sure that everything's tight. And then these switches have a big old backside on them, so you want to make sure you got them shoved nice and far back there. and then we'll line this up with our holes and screw them in. But first I'm gonna test this. I'm gonna go turn the breaker back on. We're gonna test the switch and make sure it's functioning properly. All right, we are gonna turn our power back on. Boom. All right, now the moment of truth, see if we did it right. Here's our fixture. Let's turn our switch on, and there's light. Now we're gonna dim it all the way down. Okay, so see how it's still kind of bright there? You can dim it up, dim it down, that's as far as it goes. I'm gonna show you that right now. There is a setting on your dimmer right here. And most dimmers that I've ever seen, there's this little guy. There's a plus and a minus. If I move that minus, turn the switch off, move that minus all the way down, it'll dim as far as it can go on this switch. So that's as far as that dimmer is gonna allow me to go. That's all the way up. This is down. This isn't a very bright fixture. I got it from a customer a long time ago that was very nice, and she gave it to me. So now we're gonna screw it in and call it a day. All right, with your switch should come screws and wire nuts. I just don't like using those wire nuts. I like using the tannin reds, but the screws do come with the switch. So you have a rectangular box here, a square box. Typically, from what I've seen in square boxes or rectangle boxes, they use 632 screws. And then in round boxes, they use 832 screws. It's not always gonna be that way, but it's most likely gonna be that way. What does not come with your switch, however, is a plate. Most switches do not come with a plate. So the original plate that we took off for our roller dimmer was this guy. It will not work for this switch, right? So we need a Decora plate. So if you're changing the style of switch as well as a switch, remember when you're shopping for your switch to pick up a plate that matches it as well. So you're not making separate trips for no reason, okay? All right, so the holes we talked about in the beginning of the video, you've got top and bottom. These holes on the switch line up perfectly with it. So I'm using an impact driver. I don't recommend that necessarily. You should probably just use a handheld screwdriver the first couple times you do this, so you don't over tighten it and bend the switch itself. But you're gonna line up your holes, and then this sheetrock was cut out perfectly for this switch because it's supposed to rest against the sheetrock, the entire frame is. So that way, if I screw these screws in even, directly in the center of this switch, then it'll rest on the sheetrock, and then my plate will sit flush. If you have your holes cut too big around here, then your switch is gonna go inside the wall, and then your plate, whenever you try and put it on, there will be a gap. It just won't look right. It won't sit flush. It won't sit as one. So they do make at Home Depot, Lowe's, they sell little spacers that you can put on the screw itself. So if you have this situation and your box is further back in the wall and you've got plaster or Venetian plaster, whatever, you've got all kinds of things, layers coming out here and the box is further back, you can get longer 632 screws at Lowe's or Home Depot. They sell 2-inch, 3-inch, 4-inch, and then you can get those, and then you can put spacers on the back of them to make sure that it sits flush with your sheetrock, right? Or your Venetian plaster or whatever it is you got. So now we're gonna put our plate on. Our Decora plate. You line it up. We're gonna use our trim flathead screwdriver so we don't ruin the paint inside the screw here. It is painted. Screws are always up and down, always up and down. Any electrician that wires your home and doesn't put the screws up and down, they didn't do a good job. It's the first thing I notice anywhere I'm at, is if the screws are not up and down. Drives me absolutely bananas. All right, and this is our finished product. A fully functioning dimmer. It's flush, even, all the way around, up against the sheetrock, and it functions the light fixture perfectly. Okay. All right, I hope that video was helpful somewhat. If you have any questions or concerns or anything, please go to homeownerpal.com. You can always reach us on the hotline if you have any questions. If you need to know what switch you need to buy or what plate you need to buy or what screws you need to buy, whatever, feel free to call the hotline, 423-HOTLINE. You'll get either me or Tim. If you have any issues, you can always diagnose them at homeownerpal.com. 100% free. You can find local contractors, electrical, plumbing, roofing, general contractors. We're adding more every day. Just give us a call or check us out at the website. Thank you so much.